So we were talking about the practicalities of dealing with anxiety, which we've covered. Now I think it's time to move on to the skills building element of managing anxiety. So if we think a little bit about how to manage symptoms, we need to be thinking about all those symptoms I mentioned in part one, which is that sort of over-breathing, hyperventilizing, feeling hot, feeling bothered, finding it difficult to think. So we need to really try and reverse this process, and the best way to do that is through something called controlled breathing. Now I'm going to talk through why that's important, but it is important, and it's also something we need to work on. So if we think a little bit about what happens in an anxious response, so typically our heart rate goes up and our breathing goes up. The lungs and the heart work together, that's why you have things like heart and lung transplants. They're very closely related, and as they increase their activity in response to hormones like stress hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, they increase, and what they're doing is they're working to bring oxygen around the body, getting ready to help the body fight or flight. Now the problem is, of course, as I said in this part one, is that we can't run away from some of these things. They're not tigers or things that we need to run away from. They're things like threats to our self-esteem. So we can't run away from those. What happens is we get a build-up of all this oxygen in our body that continues to increase, and yet we don't use it up. If we could run away or fight, we'd probably feel fine, but we can't. We have to sit there feeling humiliated or feeling anxious or worried about what people think of us, and therefore all that oxygen begins to build up in the body and drives the anxious response, makes us have these symptoms which are so unpleasant. So let's think a little bit about how we need to bring those oxygen levels down. So the quickest way to do that is to slowly, rhythmically control our breathing. And I'm going to talk you through a style of breathing that I think is particularly helpful. And I think if you can breathe in this way, it's very, very difficult to panic or have a panic response. There are a couple of rules to it. Firstly, get to know your anxious response. What's your first sign of anxiety? Is it your heart rate going up? Is it feeling hot? Is it feeling tension in your head? What is the first sign that you are aware of? And as soon as you get that, you start to bring your breathing down under control. So the first thing is getting in early, and also making sure that through the breathing that you're counting, you're nicely counting in, you're nicely counting out. So that just keeps your focus there and stops your mind drifting to the threat thought, which might be whatever it is that's frightening you. So how do we do this? Well, if we can control our breathing down, we can bring our oxygen levels lower, and as we do that, our body has a feedback system and says, oh, the oxygen levels are very low in the body today. There's nothing frightening here. That's really great. So it sort of tricks the body into thinking that this is a calm situation. So it's a good little technique to try and do that if you can do that. It's not unusual, though, through this breathing that you might have an anxious thought just dart in at you, and when that happens, you might notice your anxiety surge again. That's okay. We just bring our breathing back down again. So let's start with thinking about what is this breathing like? So it mostly comes from, if we think of our everyday breathing, our breathing as we breathe in comes from our shoulders. We breathe in and we breathe out through our shoulders quite naturally throughout the day. But if we think about our breathing from our diaphragm, our tummy breathing, that's the sort of breathing that we see when people are asleep in bed at night. And I don't know if you've ever looked at someone who's in deep sleep. Sometimes it looks like they're not breathing at all. And I guess this tells us that we need very, very little oxygen to be okay and to be surviving. But often when we're in a panic, our breathing is quite erratic and quite a lot, far too much for what we need. So what we need to do first of all is I'm going to talk you through an exercise. If you can do it with me at home, I want you to get comfortable, sit nice and comfortable and still. Ideally, you might do some tension checking in the body, which we're not going to do now, but I will do in the next clip. Assuming we've done that, we're going to go on to do our breathing. So what I want you to do is I want you to sit comfortably, and I'm going to ask you to breathe in to the count of 4, and then I'm going to ask you to breathe out to the count of 4, and I'm going to be doing the counting with you. If you can breathe through your tummy, great, but I don't get too hung up on that. The main thing is that we're trying to reduce our oxygen levels down. For those who are old enough to remember, in the 60s and the 70s, people would be given paper bags to breathe to control their anxiety. So they breathe into this paper bag, and as they carried on breathing, their oxygen levels would drop and then they'd calm down. Obviously, carrying around a paper bag is probably not the most convenient thing. So if you can get this breathing up and running, then that's the better thing to do. So nice and comfortable. I'm going to ask you to breathe into the count of 4, out to the count of 4. And when you breathe out, I want you just to relax the body down. And we're going to keep it really at that very low level. So assuming that you are ready, we're going to make a start. So I'm going to use my hands to cue you. So I want you to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Great. In, 2, 3, 4, and hold the count the whole way out, all the way out, nice and slow, out, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and as you breathe out, let your shoulders drop all the way down. Just let all the tension drop out of your body. That's great. And in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. So let's just pause there. What you might be noticing is that it's extremely slow breathing. It's not like normal breathing where you can breathe in quickly and you breathe out quickly. It's very slow and rhythmic, and the reason why we do that is if we can make it a nice rhythm, it's easier to reduce it down. What we're doing is just trying to get a nice steady rhythm, and then we're going to we're going to make our breath smaller and smaller and smaller. We're going to try and constrict our breath till it's very, very tiny. We don't need much oxygen, but that again will drop the oxygen levels down, and that's what we're looking for. So we're going to do one more time. I want you to pay particular attention on the breathing out, because as we breathe out, we are activating the parasympathetic system. It's telling the body slow down. So every time we breathe out slowly, all the signals are going calm in your body, which is fantastic, and that's what we really want to be doing. So now we're going to do it one more time. This time around, we're going to get a nice rhythm, and then we're going to reduce our breath down. So let's just start again. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and shoulders down as you let go. Just let all the tension out of your body. And in, 2, 3, 4, and let the tension out again. Shoulders drop all the way down to the count. And smaller breath. In, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. Even smaller. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. Let's just carry that on. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. That is absolutely fantastic. It is slow breathing. If you can try and keep that up, and even if you do have an anxious response come in, the answer is still to just keep control of that breathing and keep it really low, and you will notice if you're doing it well, you'll notice that you will feel calmer. Okay, so that's it. Next moment we're going to be moving on to think a bit more about how we deal with anxious thought and thinking a little bit about what contributes to anxiety from our mind. Okay, thank you.